Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is our Arise News analyst, Emmanuel Efeni. Great Malabite, good morning.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. Yes, we'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, Labour to federal government. There will be no warning before next strike if you renege on agreement. Insist there's trust gap between Nigerian leaders and the masses. Says crisis not over yet. Some pensioners earning 5,000 naira explains reason for suspending industrial action. Yes, the Nigerian Labour Congress President Joe Ajaero was on a News Night program of Rise channel yesterday, and of course, is warning. I think it's a clear message that 30-day window given to government to implement, actualize the MOU which they have reached, if it is breached or not kept to, then Labour will not give any notice before going on strike. Of course, above that story, Aye Dachiwa Ondo Assembly drags judge to NJC over alleged compromise, directs CJ to constitute panel despite court injunction. Well, the wheel of impeachment, once it starts rolling, it's like there's no stopping. It's like a moving train. Although there's an injunction here, but the House of Assembly members believe that the judiciary, an arm of government, cannot stop another arm of government, in this case the legislature, from carrying out its responsibilities. Now, the duty at hand is the impeachment procedure of the deputy governor of Ondo State. Well, how this will end? And Ruben, you ask, where is the governor? It's not in Ondo, it's not in Akure, but it's somewhere in Ibadan. Well, some spokespersons in Aso Villa once propounded the theory of the president of this country can rule from anywhere. Can rule this country from anywhere. So why can't Akeredolu, Arakunrin Rotimi Akeredolu, rule Ondo State from neighboring states of Oyo?
The governor of Oyo.
Well, if we go by the theory that you can rule from anywhere.
The president of Nigeria is president of the country.
No, the president was outside the country then when that theory was propounded.
No, if it's within the country.
Okay, let's just move ahead. Now, the Nation newspaper talking about the agreement with organized labor. Agreement with organized labor to cost federal government 2 trillion naira. 89,100 workers likely to miss 35,000 naira wage award. How VAT cut on diesel will affect economy. Well, there's cost to everything. Rufai, you are in the habit of asking, where is the money going to come from?
Yes, sir.
Now that question is being asked. To implement to the letter what the federal government has proposed, it has to cough out 2 trillion naira over time. Well, but the other story in the front page of the Nation newspaper, Tinubu certificate in order, CSU deposits in court. Our former student, now president, now Nigeria's president. And the quote there were materials in Mr. Tinubu's records to show that he was a male. Well, if we read further on this, the report of the deposition that happened yesterday in the U.S., the Nation newspaper reporting exhaustively that what transpired, said the registrar of the Chicago State University said there were materials in Mr. Tinubu's records to show that he was a male. I see the application to CSU. Mr. Tinubu identified himself as male. His letter of admission identified him as a male. It says Dear Mr. Tinubu, well, that's what transpired at the court yesterday. Of course, in the deposition, he said, we believe Bola Tinubu, who attended CSU, is the same person who is the president of Nigeria today. Of course, responding to a question on why Tinubu requested a diploma and not pick it up and asked that it be sent to him, or asked that it be sent to him, the registrar said, you will have to ask him. In the US, diplomas are considered merely ceremonial document. In some other countries, it may be considered more. And went further to say, well, the name Bola to them is a new name. It's not a name used to Americans. So the name could be male, could be, they don't consider that. But of course, the person they dealt with, according to this report, because the letter they wrote to him, his admission letter, reads, Dear Mr. Tinubu, I'm sure the Nation newspaper report will be of interest to many Nigerians. But the Punch newspaper also reporting on this story, Tinubu's credentials, APC lampoons Atiku ex-VP set to submit documents to Supreme Court. Atiku's journey to Chicago Varsity, a fruitless exercise, ex-VP a loser, says APC. President documents released by Varsity have vindicated us. PDP insists. Well, since that matter will be taken to the Supreme Court, we'll see how the court, the apex court in the land, will view that document. I'm sure we cannot wait long enough. Now, above the masthead of the Punch newspaper, 100 billion naira CNG buses. Senate rejects CBN loans. Warns Tinubu against illegal spending. Yes, because some of this spending they've not been appropriated for, and perhaps they need to send a budget to the Senate to capture some of this expenditure to come, which the Nation newspaper said is in the region of 2 trillion naira. Now, the New Telegraph newspaper, silent moratorium causing prison congestion, source as 3,325 condemned inmates await hangman's noose. Governors foot dragging on signing death warrants. No execution taken to on our facilities, Nigerian correctional centers. Below the photograph, ACF bewails decline in income, value, and living standard of Nigerians. Blaze fuel subsidy removal, monetary policy, says economic challenges felt more in the north, urges the federal government to ignore some World Bank IMF policies, comments federal government, labor, truce over strike. The Arewa Consultative Forum making that there. The Guardian newspaper hurdles for federal government 2024 budget over 10 trillion naira deficit palliatives. Well, in the 2022 federal government budget implementation report, expenditure 810.12 billion naira, total revenue of the government 5.30 trillion, total federal government expenditure 14.63 trillion. A lot of gap, deficit in that budget. Now, just look at the Tribune, the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Senate amends rules. First-time senators, first-timers can't contest for Senate President Deputy. Of course, those who are eyeing the position occupied by Godswill Akpabio, the uncommon senator and uncommon Malabite, well, we'll have to think twice. If you are a first-timer, don't dream of succeeding Akpabio. But he seems to be sitting easy right now. The Vanguard newspaper, frontline troops, Army probes claims of poor feeding. Army takes allegations very seriously, says spokesman, adds priority placed on troops' welfare. Supply chain under thorough investigation. Adds Chief of Army Staff committed to ensuring troops are well fed, motivated, and equipped. We need to see how the military high command will deal with these issues. Because our soldiers who are putting their lives on the line, in the front line, cannot be hungry. Nigeria is not a poor country. A lot of money budgeted for the military. So this is what looks like a national scandal, that our troops are hungry right there in the front line. Now, the Daily Sun newspaper, ministers, Kwara, Ondo get more slots as Tinubu raises a number to 48. President nominates 3 additional ministers, names Abba Balarabe as Air Rufai's replacement. Well, we've talked enough about the bloated cabinet. 48. With that nomination, will not complete once they go through the screening process. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly. The New York Times, McCarthy, first to be independently removed, yes. According to the New York Times, of course, McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy has lost his job. The first speaker to ever
lose his gavel.
Yes, to lose his gavel, as it were.
Okay, very quickly. On the statement by the Labour leader, Comrade Joe Ajero, 3 things that he brought up. One, for the first time, we're hearing about pensioners. Last Sunday on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, Professor Akinterewa brought up this same matter. It was as if organized labor was listening to him. When he was saying, look, in all these negotiations, they should spare a thought for pensioners. And Comrade Ajero said there are pensioners in this country who are collecting 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira. In the UK, they have a system, the triple lock system, whereby, as inflation goes up, or by the rate of 2.5%, or wages go up, then you adjust, pensions. Maybe that's something we ought to look at. The other point he made is that organized labor is now also going to take on the plight and interest of people working in the private sector, and at the local government level, and at the state government level. And we have brought up this point here, that all these negotiations, they're talking about federal workers. What happens to other, workers at the state and local government levels? Because that's when state governments will remember that this is supposed to be a federal arrangement. And then he made the point about the consent judgment, which he says is going to be binding. Maybe that's why. And yesterday, Dr. Amadi, took time out, Dr. Sam Amadi, our fellow great Malabite, to explain, the implications of that. But we'll see. Will the government respect the terms of agreement? 30 days will soon be here. Maybe 30 days time is when they will start with subcommittee. Thank you very much, Emmanuel.